KTSA News Time 11:08. Good morning. It is Monday, April 11th, 2011. Time for another one of our City Council candidate forums. This time we're in District 8, a heavily populated and populous City Council district, currently represented by City Councilman Reed Williams. He is here today, along with his challenger, Caron West. Candidates, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Great to be
We're going to talk on the radio a little bit and talk about District 8 and city issues. The audio podcast of this forum will be available on our KTSA.com website later on this afternoon, and there will also be a video podcast of it that will take us another day or so to edit and put together, but that will be available as well. Reed Williams was elected 2 years ago to represent District 8. He's a retired petroleum industry executive. Caron West is a Vietnam veteran and real estate broker and longtime resident in District 8. So we're glad to have you with us. And also joining us today, as they will be for all of the City Council candidate forums, reporters from PLAZA, which is the new online politics and current events newspaper for San Antonio. We have with us reporters Greg Jefferson and Gilbert Garcia. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Brad.
In our order of questions, we're going to start with Caron West, and the first question is going to come from Gilbert Garcia.
Thank you for being here, Caron.
Thank you.
In the wake of the Japanese nuclear disaster, CPS Energy decided to suspend talks on the possibility of buying more power from the proposed nuclear expansion that we have here in Texas. Has the crisis in Japan, has it affected your view of nuclear power and the role that it might play in San Antonio?
I'm very glad you asked me that question, because everyone is acting as though nuclear power is something that needs to be feared. The earthquake that happened in Japan, the Japanese did a very good job building their nuclear power plants. They built them to withstand the magnitude. I don't think they expected quite that big a magnitude, but they certainly did withstand it. And then they went, in case there was a power outage, they had their generators. Now, where they failed was the generators need something to make them run, and in this case it was their propane or the fuel tanks that they had, which they didn't carry their plan all the way through. They put those tanks on top of the ground so that when the tsunami came, it washed them away, eliminating the power for the generators. And no, I don't think nuclear power is anything for us to be fearful of. In fact, I think it would be a tremendous asset to us.
So when it comes to the South Texas project, you think what happened in Japan is not really relevant?
No, not at all.
Okay. Reed Williams, what's your view?
Well, there's no doubt the earthquake and tsunami in Japan was just a tragedy, and we need to keep in our minds and our prayers the folks that are over there fighting that still today, because it is something that the whole world is watching. As far as nuclear energy, I'm on record of I'm not against nuclear energy from a safety standpoint. It's environmentally clean, but as we know from 2 years ago, the economics just aren't good for it. We analyzed it when we were in the project with TEPCO and NRG, and with the price of gas and where I think the price of natural gas is going to stay, I just don't think you'll see the economics for nuclear energy in any time in the near future. So while we can debate the safety, those were first generation boiling water reactors. Okay, so that's not exactly what they were going to build at South Texas Nuclear Project. But that having been said, I just don't see the economics for it, and that's what we work on, is economics. We've got to make sure we've got good economic analysis for the ratepayers for the city of San Antonio.
Are you comfortable with the 7.6% share that San Antonio has in those additional units? Yeah,
I'm comfortable with that. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the fact that if they get their financing, we then get some additional money for the city and the citizens of the city. But I don't think that much will happen. I think it's just economics will prevail.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate that question from Gilbert Garcia for our candidates from City Council District 8. Our next question will come from PLAZA, reporter Greg Jefferson. And Greg will start this time with Reed Williams.
Okay, great. The city's facing a projected shortfall of $37 million in its next fiscal year, and that's before taking into account what might be coming down in the way of cuts and unfunded mandates from the state and federal government. So, Reed Williams, my question to you is, where are the first few places you go to exact savings from the city government?
Well, we need to be careful with the first part of that, and that is it's 37 million. Okay, it might not be 37 million. It might be a lot worse. It could be better. We have to see where the property values are coming in this summer. We won't see that from Bear Appraisal District till the summer. When we see that number, then we've got to be very careful that if that number has decreased, if our property values have decreased, that we do not raise the mill rate, the rate itself. I mean, I think it's important in these times, absolutely not to raise the rate. On top of that, where will those cuts come from? I think you're going to have to see cuts in some respects across the board. I'm not a big fan of just taking everything down a percentage. I think we need to find programs where we can, and we'll be getting information on those, that we don't do well or that they're not very effective, and try to eliminate those programs or substitute them for something else. I think we need to combine programs. As you know, the two budgets that we went through were reasonably easy to balance. Okay, we didn't have to lay people off. You know, we eliminated positions. So I think those were a lot easier, Greg, than anything we're going to see. So we are going to have to look at social services. We're going to have to look at the way we do our maintenance plans on the streets. We've got to get more effective on those. I've been working on a repair program with Majid to try to increase the efficiency there. I think it's just across the board. We're going to have to look at everything.
Well, from your nearly 2 years in office now, do any specific programs or departments come to mind for either efficiencies, like you were talking about, or just outright reductions?
Yeah, well, there's a few. If I start naming them now, you know, they're going to be under the gun. I don't mind talking about certain areas. I think that we can save. I'll give you one. Each one of the council persons has an individual secretary supplied by the city. I think we can team up. Okay, I mean, I think individual secretaries went out in the petroleum industry 20 years ago, and so I think that's the kind of thing I'm interested in. I don't mind sharing a secretary.
So you didn't have your own secretary at Tesoro?
No, well, I did. I left Tesoro in '92. When I left Tesoro, that was the last time I had an individual secretary. In '92. So what is it today? 19 years. Yeah. So.
Now, do you see? Is there any circumstance under which you would agree to raise the property tax rate in the next budget cycle?
None. I think that's the canary in the coal mine. That tells if we're going to do our job or not. Okay. If we do our job, we'll get this done without doing that. If we don't get our job done, we'll take that out and we'll raise the rate.
Okay, great. Caron West. So where do you go for savings with what looks to be a pretty tough budget?
Well, I am a fan of a percent rate cut straight down the line. I don't see any problem with that. Individual families have had to take a pay cut. They're losing jobs. Small businesses are losing revenue. Why is it that the city is exempt from that, the public worker? You know, the private person is taking it really hard in their pocketbook. Prime example is well, what the main issue I have is with SAWS and CPS rate increase that just went into effect. The San Antonio water system increased their rate 6.5%, which is currently bringing in $20.3 million for this year, which the city gets 2.7% of that. So, you know, if there's a budget problem, there's obviously an accountability problem and a responsibility problem. And then with the CPS, that rate went up 7.5%. They want to raise it again 8.5% next year. Ratepayers, the homeowner and the person who's out there trying to support their family can't afford this. It continues to go on. The city is going to have to go on a tighter budget, just like families have to do.
Were you suggesting maybe that city employees take a pay cut?
I think anyone who is employed in the public sector should take a pay cut just as private people have had to do.
And as far as departments and programs, any specific ones come to mind for
Well,
reduction or
I'm
elimination?
at a disadvantage because I'm not that familiar with all the programs and departments that are out there. But I do believe that there is a lot of duplication, and as Councilman Williams said, having a secretary for each individual is a little bit frivolous.
Right. And where do you see some of the duplication?
Well, with the CPS and the SAWS, why can't they be under one umbrella? You know, now they're looking at taking on Bear Met. I don't mind the city taking over Bear Met, but I sure don't want us taking over their debt.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I keep turning my microphone off and not turning it back on again. And a lot of people think the show's improved as a result. We're going to come back with our District 8 candidates, the incumbent Reed Williams and the challenger Caron West, and more questions for them. And you can get in on this. You can email a question to me, jack@ktsa.com, and we'll put it before the candidates as we continue our City Council District 8 Candidates Forum on News Talk 550 KTSA. Forum, the City Council District 8 candidates, the incumbent Reed Williams, the challenger Caron West. And if you have a question for them you want answered, maybe you live in District 8 or you do business in District 8 or you're just interested in the people who will be representing the city in the next 2 years, you can either email that to us, jack@ktsa.com, or you can call 599-5555. All right, if I am doing this right, the next question will be from Gilbert Garcia, and the order of it will go first to Caron West.
That's right. Caron West, last year the City Council voted on and approved a resolution condemning Arizona's SB 1070 immigration law. Do you think that kind of a statement from the City Council, is that an appropriate role for the City Council to play, to make that kind of
No,
statement?
it is not an appropriate role. That what goes on in other states needs to stay in that state. That's like, you know, Mama always told me don't air your dirty laundry, but for everyone else to jump on board and make an opinion, I believe is very inappropriate.
I guess the argument made on by those who supported it, their argument was that this would send a statement to the legislature letting them know that San Antonio did not want something similar in Texas. Do you think there's anything to that argument at all? Or
Could say that again?
I think the argument made by the people who supported that resolution last year was that by making that statement, San Antonio would be letting the state legislature know that we did not approve of, or the city did not approve of something similar in
Maybe
Texas.
I misunderstood you initially. It's my understanding that the city council came out against it. You're saying they were for it?
No, they were against the Arizona law, but the resolution, I think the thinking behind it was to let the state legislature to tell the state legislature the city of San Antonio did not want a similar law in Texas as Arizona had.
Okay.
Do you think there's any benefit to making that kind of a statement that?
Again, I think the city of San Antonio and the council in particular needs to concern itself with the state of Texas and the city of San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
And what goes on in Arizona should not be of any concern. No, I don't think they had. I don't see any justification for it.
Do you think there's a role for a state or local law enforcement in the immigration?
I feel a state can make a statement, but for a city council who's representing a city, I think they're.
But beyond the resolution, do you think there's a role for state and local law enforcement officials to play in immigration, in dealing with the immigration issue?
Yes.
And what role would you like to see?
I would like to see more of an input of what needs to be done on our borders, and I believe that the people who actually are there at the border know full well what's going on, and they should be listened to.